So this is our next lesson on the sociology of crime and deviance. We're still looking at crime stats, but now we're going to look at some more useful and more accurate crime statistics. They do exist. In the textbook, we're on page 100 and 101. So we're going to learn about these better methods. Better, not perfect. No method is perfect. We're going to understand how it works and why some politicians and journalists are not interested. It's a better method, but some people, even though they know it exists, are not interested. By doing that, we are thinking. Keywords are British crime survey, victim study, accurate reality, representative sample, anonymous, victimless, drugs, fraud, embarrassed, self-report study, lying, prove. Right. So, British crime survey, come on to that in a moment, it's important. You study it, blah, blah. It's accurate, you're seeing reality. If you remember, a representative sample is how you choose the right group of people to study. If you get your sample correct, then your findings are correct. If you get your sample wrong, your findings are wrong. And the best sort of sample is a representative one, the right mix of people. Anonymous means you don't leave your name, no one knows who you are, can't be identified. Drugs, fraud, taking money from an institution, usually without them knowing it. Okay, let's carry on. So, a victim study. It's a method for studying crime and deviance. You don't ask the police for how many crimes they've had reported and have written down. You pick a representative sample of people, a few thousand, and you ask them, in the past year, how many crimes have you been a victim of? That's how a victim study works. You pick a sample and you ask them, how many crimes have they been a victim of? Best example in Britain is the BCS, the British Crime Survey. It's done by the government every few years, every year I think now. And they look to find out how much crime there really is. They pick a good sample, representative from all parts of Britain, etc., etc. Ask them anonymously to say what sort of crimes they've been a victim of. And by doing that, you get figures like this. The yellow is reported crime. This dark yellow is what the BCS says. And you'll notice in every single year, 2001, 2005, 2009, the BCS figure is much higher in the millions. So, for example, 2009, 2010, recorded crime was about 5 million. BCS said it was about 11. This gap is crimes that, according to the police, don't exist. Not been reported, not been recorded. It's referred to in literature as the dark figure. The difference between how much crime there really is and how much crime the government thinks there is. Advantages of this method. Well, clearly it picks up a lot of unreported and unrecorded crime. Things like if you want to report to the police because you're too afraid to, you don't think it's important, you don't think anyone will believe you, you will tell the British Crime Survey. More serious crimes involving weapons like these, probably not. Police already know about this. But the minor stuff, the theft, the stuff being pinched from your front garden, it picks up all those crimes that are not reported and not recorded. Disadvantages, some major ones here. Certain crimes won't get picked up on. It's a victim study. Therefore, if there's no victim, there's no one to report it. Drug deals won't appear in these figures. If there's a crime where you feel embarrassed, rape, for example, hardly ever gets in a BCS survey because people are embarrassed to talk about it. Therefore, it just doesn't show up. So a victimless crime doesn't work for, embarrassment crime doesn't work for, fraud If somebody who works for you stolen from you, you might not even know it's happened. Therefore, you can't be a victim, or you don't know you're a victim, so it can't appear on the stats. So this is a much better method, but not a perfect method. Moving on. There's also self-report studies, normally done in prison. You find people who've been convicted of a crime. They're doing time in prison. You say anonymously, would you talk to me about other crimes you've committed that you've not been charged with? Because anonymous, often they will. And therefore you'll find out that not just how much crime, but who's committed it. And that's the big advantage of it. You pick up the patterns. You pick up the details of crime. It's because of these sorts of surveys that we know we have prolific criminals. We know from these sorts of surveys. It's not for every million crimes there's a million criminals. There's a few thousand criminals committing lots of crime. They're what we call prolific offenders. And through a self-report study we can pick these up. A small amount of people who have committed lots and lots and lots of crime on a daily basis. Disadvantages. Well, the obvious one is lying. If you talk to these lads about crimes they committed, they'll say, oh, I stabbed him up. Yeah, I murked him. Pfft, liars. So, exaggerations is more the problem with this thing, especially if you talk about youth crime. It's very difficult. For every boy that gets stabbed, you're going to find 30 blokes who said they did it. So that's you're not quite sure who's telling the truth and who's not.